Hey there. As someone who has featured vocalists in several of my productions, I've learned a few things about working with vocalists that I thought I'd share for those of you who might find it helpful. Working with singers is such a personal thing, and there are no rules. Each producer and vocalist is unique, and so your experiences and my experiences will be different with each artist that we work with. And I will add that these same discussion points could also be applied to working with different collaborators and just session musicians in general. There are three main points that I want to cover in this video. The first one is finding vocalists. The second is managing expectations. The third is working remotely. Let's dive in. Often when it's our first time, we want to be intimately involved in the recording process and to be physically present for that. So that limits the talent pool to who we can find in our local area. I've been fortunate enough to find some very good local talent here in my metropolitan area where I live of 200,000 people, which is a fairly small metro area. I'm literally right in the middle of cornfields. So don't discount the talent that you may find in your local community. There's a lot more talent than you think. So where could you start looking for a singer? Well, if you're going to go that local route because you want to be involved, I would say that even fairly small cities have an arts and entertainment section in their local newspapers that shows a list of local musicians and then local events and local shows that are happening. And so a lot of times your local bars and pubs and clubs will have local musicians performing there. And so it can be a really good way, especially to find vocalists and other musicians to work with, especially if you see the same names over and over again. It may be uncomfortable to reach out cold to other artists, but more often than not, artists are usually more than happy to connect with other artists in their city. Naturally, leveraging your existing professional local network is less intimidating than cold contacting artists that you don't know. If you know other producers in your city who have already worked with some singers, ask them for referrals. Also, local recording studios often work with a lot of musicians, and they have a roster of talent that they work with. So you may want to reach out to some recording studios and ask them if they can make some connections for you. All right, so beyond locally, this day and age with technology, it is easier than ever to find talent to work with and to be able to collaborate with them. We aren't limited to our geographic local area. We can literally work with vocalists or singers from all over the world. And then there are services like Fiverr and Air Gigs out there, but I don't really have any personal experience with using a service like that. You might consider posting on social media that you're looking for a singer, but personally, that is not the way that I would source talent. If your approach is too casual, you may get lucky and find some real gems, but you're more likely to get responses from people who maybe sing well in the shower or at karaoke, but haven't really invested enough into their artistry to treat it seriously. I am a big believer in dreaming big, but I also try to be self-aware by approaching singers who are at roughly the same level that I'm at in my career. And you can reach for the stars if you want to, but I wouldn't necessarily go and advise someone a new artist to reach out to a singer like Alternate or Inaya Day to work on a collaboration with. On the flip side, some singers will work with anyone and everyone, but it's not always to your advantage to work with a singer who's on another 100 records that year, or maybe even more than that. There is something to be said for originality and freshness. At the end of the day, there are many creative ways to find vocalists, and it can be like magic when you finally click with someone who is professional and that you vibe well with. Those relationships do need to be nurtured. You want to be the kind of producer that they want to work with on multiple projects. When you're an established producer who has worked with multiple vocalists, you'll have a roster full of singers that you can contact on your projects, and at that point, finding a singer won't be an issue. They'll start coming to you. All right, so into the next major point, managing expectations. So you've found a vocalist, and now it's time to discuss that chart-topping hit that you have envisioned for your project. And whether that project is the vocalist's first piece or they're a seasoned professional, there is a little bit of a learning curve for you as a producer. Growing pains are to be expected, and it's important to manage expectations as best as you can up front. Clearly defined expectations will set you and the vocalist both up for professional and creative success, and it will help you to avoid a lot of headaches in the future. Do you need a contract? One of the first things that you might think when discussing expectations is, should I use a contract? And the short answer for me is no. I personally don't feel that a formal legal contract is necessary when working with vocalists, with a huge caveat that as long as you write down the essential elements of your agreement in an email, that should be sufficient. But at the end of the day, you just need to do whatever you feel comfortable with. There may be things that you don't think about or that you would omit otherwise if you don't use a contract. I have used contracts before, and these days it's pretty easy to find a template for a standard work for hire artist contract if that's the direction that you're going with your project. If you expect that your project is going to blow up and go and make it really big, then you might need a contract. All right, another expectation to set is roles and responsibilities. Some things that you want to be absolutely crystal clear about are who's responsible for what somebody's capabilities are, and their responsibilities. You as the producer have likely already produced or created a good portion of the music, but who's going to write the lyrics? Who's going to write the melody? Does the vocalist have the ability to write a melody for you? Do they have the ability to write lyrics as well as a melody? Do they prefer to write the lyrics and melody? If you're writing the melody, does the singer need a lead sheet or a reference vocal from you? What will the songwriting split or the percentage be? And what will that look like? There are no right or wrong answers here. It's really up to what you're comfortable with, except that both you and the singer need to be on the same page and have that conversation about expectations. Another thing to consider is financial expectations. So that's probably one of the most important thing to consider is that what are the financial terms? Will the singer be considered a work for hire? Will she participate in sales and royalty splits? When will the singer get paid? Is there a fee within your budget? And speaking of fees, be sure to pay in full and on time. The industry has too many shady people out there already, and you don't want to be another one. All right, another expectation to consider is scheduling and location, and then also deadlines. If you have a deadline that you're trying to work against, you need to be sure that the singer is able to work within that deadline. I have found that I need to allow enough time for rescheduling because life happens. People get allergies and sore throats, transportation issues come up. Sometimes there's some personal relationship issues that and drama that happens. And, sometimes studios or artists double book. When these issues happen, just take it with a grain of salt, be patient, and be professional about it. All right, another expectation that a lot of people, that I certainly missed out on in my first couple of projects is file formats and transferring. What are the deliverables that are expected? Those should be well defined and communicated clearly. What file format, bit depth, and sample rate will the vocal recordings be delivered? Will there be a specific shared drive that you expected the singer to use? Is WeTransfer acceptable for sending files back and forth? All of these considerations don't necessarily need to be enumerated in a contract, like I talked about before, but an email or even a phone call with key points is sufficient. The more that is discussed up front, the better, but also you'll need to keep communicating consistently throughout the project. All right, now on to working remotely. Being willing to work with singers remotely will provide you a lot of flexibility since you'll have a bigger pool of talent to choose from. And also it's just a lot of times it's easier. If you're okay with not being in the studio at the time that the singer is recording, the singer can work on their own schedule. And that can be hard to do. We do just trying to let go. Sometimes letting go is difficult. We need to trust the singer's professionalism and experience. Seasoned vocalists will deliver a great product whether or not you're there. In fact, a lot of singers prefer to work asynchronously so that they can batch their work and be more efficient with their time. The upfront communication and preparation discussed in this section will help to ensure that they will deliver on your vision. If you'd like to be more hands-on, there are ways to mimic the experience of being in the studio when the singer is recording, but I don't have any personal experience with that, so I can't speak to that situation. My experience is they're either in the studio with me or they're recording on their own schedule in their own time. But there are ways that they can work remotely with you kind of dialing in to like a Zoom call, and then also potentially they might use a tool like Listen To by Audio Movers. So one way that I've helped to communicate my vision with the singers is to send them a scratch vocal. It helps them to understand my vision and what I'm looking for. If I'm featuring the vocalist on a song that I wrote, I'll send them a mix down of the song that has a skeleton arrangement of the song, as well as me singing the melody on it. And I've also included an NDA that they will never, that they'll never share my voice singing on that track ever. Just kidding. But nobody wants to hear me sing. I'm no singer by any stretch of the imagination, but sending some kind of a reference track reduces some of the guesswork that the singer might have to do for figuring out your intent for your vision. An additional thing to consider is should the singer have their own setup? Ideally, the singer will have their own recording setup, if not for the final tracking, at least to record a scratch vocal so that they can give you an idea of what they're sounding like with your track. And this is especially helpful if they're writing the lyrics and the melody. If the singer does have their own setup, it can save you time and money because you don't have to pay for the studio time above and beyond the singer's fee. It also potentially saves time since any rework can easily be rescheduled. So if they make a mistake, you can have them record again, and it's not going to cost you any additional studio time, and you won't have to wait for the studio to have an opening in their schedule again. If you're using a third-party studio, you may want to plan to have an additional budget allowance and project time for possible rework. As I said before, things come up and it's just, you got to roll with it and be professional. On a personal note, I'll say that I wouldn't discount a singer who doesn't have their own recording setups. Everyone starts somewhere. At some point, a professional singer should have the tools of the trade in order to be the most professional that they can be. And that includes having a simple setup for recording, even if it's just for a scratch vocal, for a draft version of the recording. Whether you're new to working with vocalists or you have a lot of tracks under your belt, feel free to download my cheat sheet for working with vocalists. I've distilled more than 40 tips into one page so that you can ensure that your vocal projects are a success from here on out. I've included a link in the description or the show notes. Cheers. Take care.